3, 2, 1. Happy New Comic Book Day, everyone. It is Wednesday, October 16th, 2019. And you know what that means. That's right. It's time for Ash Wednesdays. Man, it's my favorite day of the week. Joining me, as always, is Stan the Man and his co-host, my co-host Stan the Man, Stan's co-host Forky. He got a promotion. He's no longer an intern. He's now Stan's co-host. I don't even know how that works. I'm sitting here pounding the table. Look at this. If I do this, this is the production values that you've come to love and expect at Ashland Comics. I don't need to introduce these guys, really, do I? Good to have you, Stan. We miss you. Comic fans love you. Comics wouldn't be what they are today, and you'll always be remembered by true comic fans everywhere. So let's look at this gorgeous box. You're like, what the hell is that? Oh man. Well, it's a burger box. A burger box, that's right. From the best burger place in the world, In-N-Out Burger. Every Wednesday, I treat myself to a delicious In-N-Out double. I unbox the burger. Now, today, I dropped the box. Man, so I don't know what I'm about to find inside. I didn't drop it far. I dropped it like in the trunks. It didn't hit the floor. But I was pulling stuff out of the trunk of the car, and it fell like about a foot or two. So I don't know if it's all. We'll see. It's suspense. So every week I go to In-N-Out Burger, and it's just a treat, and it's become a tradition on the show. There's some history of what the show used to be called, the In-N-Out Weekly Comics Pull List. And wow, look at that. Jeez. So this is after the box dropped and, a foot or two. And it still looks, not quite like the picture, but you know what I'm saying? Look at that. It's not like what you normally get from fast food place. And I want to tell you something. This is $4. It's the same price as a comic book. A Big Mac's going to run you like, what do they cost nowadays? $5.99? Big Macs will cost you the price of a Marvel comic book, and In-N-Out Burgers will cost you the price of a DC comic book. Isn't that funny how that? So I'm going to Mac on this, and then we're going to talk some comics. This is a new segment that I'm doing called Marvel versus DC. Now, it's collecting a couple of other segments that I had done and putting it all together into one thing. And I'm still kind of tweaking this. If you got ideas of what things to include or not include, how to mold this and shape it better, let me know. But let's get on with it. One of the things I've been doing, and I'm going to keep doing, is the new number ones. It used to be just when I made fun of Marvel number ones, but then DC said, Marvel, hold my beer. And last week, they came in and trounced Marvel. Marvel had 3 new number ones, which was, a little bit low. But DC had 7. They just destroyed Marvel. They said, you think you got it? We're going to come in and put a bunch of number ones too. Apparently they want a lot of us to put our kids through college because both Marvel and DC really care about pushing these number one comics that everyone's going to want in 10 to 20 years, and they're going to be worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Am I right? Oh man. Disclaimer. Anything you're about to see in this segment should not be taken to any sort of a comic book investment advice. This is all satire. All right, starting off, number 1, X-Men. Man, if you want an actual Uncanny X-Men number 1 from back in 1963, you're going to fork over a lot of money. And here you got your chance today to get the 2019 equivalent, right? Am I right? Well, possibly, even by the numbers that this book is probably going to ship, which if I had to guess is going to be somewhere around 200,000 units, that's actually small compared to other comics. And it's the low shipping numbers today that make some of these number ones an actual possibility. And it's X-Men. Of course it's going to be worth tons of money, right? I mean, just look at the value that you already get for X-Men Yellow and X-Men Blue and Red and Black. And then the Uncanny X-Men that came out last year. I mean, look how much those books are worth. Next, Absolute Carnage, The Avengers. Oh boy, can't get enough of this. Marvel has really got your back when it comes to number ones. They made sure to have 10 different number ones for this event, Absolute Carnage. Now, I'm only getting the main Absolute Carnage from Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman because I care about good comics that I want to read. I'm not a speculator, but if I was, holy shit, look at all these number ones I could be getting and bagging and boarding and throwing them in a box so that I could be, retire rich. Crazy number one. Man, you'd be crazy not to get this book. Look, Dugan, Howard, Adams, Koblish, Simpson, Busto. Who? It's The Revenge of Obnoxio. It's got Wolverine on the cover. It's number one. It's crazy. The magazine that dares to be dumb. That's something that most Marvel comics can't say, right? Right? Finally, Marvel Tales featuring the Ghost Rider. Oh, and I neglected to mention, those previous 3 books were $5 a piece it'll run you. That's a minor investment. This book, however, look at the art on this cover. Wow. I'm not a Ghost Rider fan, but this is a striking cover. And as such, Marvel's going to make sure to charge you $8 for this book. But come on, it's Ghost Rider. What Ghost Rider number one in the past hasn't been worth tons of money? All right, now DC, the competitor, they're starting off strong with a Batman book because that's their big deal. X-Men is Marvel's. DC's got Batman. They remember Nightfall. They're playing up on that nostalgia. You remember Nightfall when Batman got his back broken? Well, here's the dark multiverse version of that story. I'm a big, side note, I'm a big dark multiverse fan. I like the Metal event. Scott Snyder, I thought it was onto something. But man, DC is just shitting the bed with this. Instead of developing it and doing something good for their fans, they're just using this as an exploitive bullshit book. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with real continuity, what's going on. We do have a Batman Who Laughs series going on. There's too many events right now. You've got Year of the Villain. You've got Bendis's Event Leviathan. And now you've got the Batman Who Laughs tale running across with, the new Batman versus Superman book, which I'm assuming this is part of. You can't have 3 events simultaneously. You're not Marvel. This book will set you back $6. But hey, if you missed Nightfall to begin with, now's your chance to get the dark version. Whew. Now, speaking of investments, look at the guy on the cover is solid gold. This book is by Dan DiDio himself. If you pass this up, you're passing up an extraordinary opportunity. Dan DiDio does not do very many comics. This is a guy that's controlling the ship. I'm sure this is going to be so awesome because of that. If you miss Metal Men number 1, well, you're probably going to save yourself $5. And speaking of saving yourself money, holy cow, Superman smashes the Klan. Look at this cover. Isn't the Klan normally after black people? Isn't that the whole deal? They're white supremacists. Why is Superman defending a white girl? But Ash, that's not a white girl. What? Oh, yeah. She's Asian. I can tell. They colored her yellow. That's not racist. This racist book will set you back $8. Enjoy. Finally, Wonder Woman. 100-page giant, number 1. Now, I was a big proponent of the Walmart books. They rebooted that because everyone bitched and moaned, and I don't know, their exclusive deal with Walmart. Something changed. DC decided to start it all over again. This time, these books are available in the comic stores, so you don't have to get off your ass and go to a Walmart to pick them up. Boo-hoo. Now you can get them at the comic book store. 100 pages, $5. If you're a person who just likes reading comic stories, this seems like a no-brainer. I don't know if it's going to be worth anything because these are reprint stories, but it's a number 1, so that's going to make it worth something, right? The final tale of the tape, Marvel has 4 number 1s, DC 4 number 1s. Tie, but DC squeaks out the win with the price, $24 is going to set you back to Marvel's $23. Look at that. $47 if you want to get all the number ones. You just $47 to your weekly pull list? Come on. Who doesn't have that to spare, right? When you think about the return on your investment, my goodness. If you look at the top here, Marvel had 19 new comics this week, and DC had 18. That's astounding. DC is getting all in. It was just like 3 months ago that DC was saying, we're cutting back. Remember this? They had that announcement. We're cutting back 15% of our line. There's not enough quality talent in the business to warrant all these books, and they wanted to focus on having more quality over quantity. And I called that horseshit. I called it out months ago as a lie because I saw the pipeline, all these books. DC is announcing more books than ever. And look, they trounced Marvel last week on number ones. They tied them this week on number ones. And look at the number of new comics. Marvel has almost twice as many books as DC, but yet DC released 18 new comics to Marvel's 19. That's a tremendous difference. I mean, it's only one book in the greater scheme of things, but it's a much greater percentage of DC's overall line because they have a smaller line. So these numbers go to DC just on that edge alone. DC wins. Now, if you see this other number, the total is counting variants and reprints. So kudos to DC for not having a lot of variant covers inflating those numbers, like Marvel, 81. Marvel, you're so funny. But DC doesn't know how to do things on their own. All they do is copy Marvel. They act like a little sibling, right? That's 4 years younger, and they just copy everything that Big Brother does. And 4 years later, that young sibling is doing the exact same things the older sibling was. And remember Marvel now? Well, now it's time for DC now. You should probably know what I'm talking about. We'll talk about that. I don't know about today, but definitely later. Now we're going to digital sales. Number 10, Dr. Doom. I picked up this book. I made a video on it. Congratulations, Dr. Doom, for making the top 10. Now, this list is about digital sales, and it's important to note this because there's lots of different sales figures you can calculate it, if you're looking to look into those numbers. I picked digital sales for two reasons. Number one, it's easy to find the numbers, like quantifiable numbers. Comixology shows them every week. But number two, I find it very interesting because this shows what people are actually paying money to read, what they're actually interested in as far as story content and for their entertainment dollar. Not, oh, it's got crazy variant cover, or oh, it's got this guest appearance of so-and-so, and it's going to be worth a ton of money. There's no speculation. These comics have no intrinsic value. You pay your money and you get a story. That is it. So there's no, oh, I got to buy 5 different covers so the sales are increased. Or, the store, ordered twice as many of this comic as they normally do because they had to in order to get the special cover of this other comic. That's one of the predatory practices Marvel does. There's none of that in the in the digital era. So even though these numbers aren't super specific because it doesn't factor in what actual comic readers like me and possibly you who go to the stores and buy their comics, it's a different crowd. It does still show an interesting statistics that I like to point out. So moving along, number 9, it's The Flash. Joshua Williamson is one of the better writers at DC. I keep telling people this is quietly just chugging along as one of the great Flash runs. People just don't seem to care about Flash. It's kind of too bad because it's a good book. Now this would be number 8, right? Did I count that right? 10, 9, 8, yeah. I'm so sad. East of West by Jonathan Hickman. I believe this might be the last issue. I'm not 100% sure. It is winding down, I know for sure. And it doesn't surprise me to see this in here now that Hickman's been making a name for himself on House of X and Powers of 10. Holy crap, is that a good book. So congratulations, Jonathan Hickman. You're becoming a superstar really quickly. That was number 8, East of West. Number 7, The Joker. Now, this is a number 1, so obviously you always have assistance by having that number 1, right? People love checking out, even if it's not for value. You're not going to put your kids through college. On the digital side, people like to check out number 1s because it's a starting point. It's easy to jump on. There's no like, oh man, I missed all this story. And one-shots in particular, it's just a one-time investment. You get the full story. So I can see that being in the digital era. Plus, John Carpenter is one of my favorite writer-directors. He's kind of past his prime now, but man, he did some of my favorite movies back in the 80s and 90s. The Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time. One of the best horror movies ever made. You got They Live, astounding movie. You got, Big Trouble in Little China. You got Escape from New York. A bunch of films. So I'm very curious to read this book. Number 6, Batman's Grave. It's Batman. It's a number 1. It's a no-brainer that it's on this list. I did a video on it, though. You might want to check it out before you read this book. Number 5, Batman Detective Comics 1013. Yes, congratulations. Peter Tomasi is writing the best ongoing Batman series right now. Detective Comics is in the top 5 for a reason. It's better than Batman. This is the book you should be reading. I did a video on the last issue. I'll probably be doing a video on this issue in the future, but check this out. Last issue was a good jumping on point. I would recommend going back all the way to 1000. It's a great place to start a collection and build up. Let's see. Number 4, Amazing Spider-Man. This is a strong testament here. First of all, fans love Spider-Man, so Marvel doesn't have to work very hard to have Spider-Man in there. Fans want a good Spider-Man book. Nick Spencer has been getting some good praise. Ryan Ottley is a fan favorite artist. I hear a lot of people saying good things about him. So that's great. I'm not a big fan of either of them, so I don't buy the book, but they have their fans, and obviously they want to read them, even despite any value that these books may or may not have. Number 3, oh my goodness, Superman 16. Now, this hurts my heart a little bit because Bendis is writing such a terrible Superman story. It's so awful, and he's destroyed this character on the cover here, Jonathan Kent, in my opinion. I know so many people around my circle of influence share this opinion, but that's not everyone. And obviously, there's enough people out here that want to read his book, still like Bendis. They like what Bendis is doing, and it's number 3. Now, maybe that's because you got the Super Sons return. Super Sons were a big fan favorite. Even me, I was super prejudiced against this. I was like, oh, Super Sons is stupid. I didn't know what I was talking about. I got converted, and now I'm one of the fans that are bitter that I got destroyed, which is ironic. But I both want to read this and not want to read this at the same time. I want to read it because I just want to see how bad it is, but I don't want to read it because I know how bad it's going to be. Oh, moving along. Number 2, Bendis is on twice. Look at this. Number 2, Bendis Event Leviathan. Now, I've been doing videos on all these books too. This is actually not a terrible book. Issue number 4 was starting to slip. And that's one of the things I noticed Bendis does. He can start off strong and can't finish. The first 3 issues were pretty decent. If you like a mystery story, it definitely kept you interested into what's going on. Who's Leviathan? And that keeps people on the hook and wanting to buy more books. I get it. It's not a great story, but it's not trash like most of Bendis' books. At least up to issue 4, which I admit is starting to decline. We'll see how this one's going. I'll hopefully do a video on this in the future. And finally, number 1, no surprise, Powers of 10, number 6. I did a really extensive video trying to gather my thoughts on this book. This is one of the most powerful X-Men stories I have ever read in my entire life, and I've read the entire Chris Claremont run. It's astoundingly good. I am shocked, and I was, again, a big naysayer about this book coming out. But it's here. People digitally want to read it, whether or not they're collecting it. And there you go. So here's the final tally. You can see a list of what was the top 10. And then moving along, we got the tail of the tape. On digital sales, Marvel 3, DC 6. So DC wins again. They win the number ones and they win the digital sales. Congratulations, DC. You're still on top. In I don't know if that's good to be a number one in the anyways, you know what I'm talking about. If you have any ideas about this particular segment, about Marvel versus DC, how it can be improved, things to cut, ideas to add, leave them in the notes below. I'd be curious. I'm still kind of formulating this, and my way of doing things is just go and launch it. Don't plan. Just get an idea, throw it out there, see if it sticks. And so this is what I'm doing now. Thanks for watching this segment. Let's get on to the next one. Okay, now we talk about news and commentary. This week, a couple days ago, I think this broke, big deal. Kevin Feige takes over comics as new chief creative officer. That's at Marvel Comics. This shouldn't really surprise anyone. I know there's been a lot of back and forth discussion about this. Some people think it's the greatest thing ever. Some people think, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. And, this is kind of normal when you get a news like this. My boy Perch over at Comics with Perch, he's got a YouTube channel, did a really outstanding video on this. A really good commentary. He's a dealer. He's got an industry perspective that's going to be a lot more clear than mine. So if you want to know more details, definitely check out his video. If I can remember, I'll try to put a link in the description below, but I'm really bad at remembering that sort of stuff. But it's Comics with Perch. If you don't know his channel, you really should. Gosh, these dogs. Anyways, so the big takeaway here is that Kevin Feige is taking over all creative control of all things Marvel. Now, it used to be Marvel Comics had its own creative control, Marvel TV had its own creative control, and then, of course, Marvel Film had its own creative control. Feige was the head of the film division. I want to say Jeff Loeb was the TV, but I don't think that's the case because there's actually two TV divisions. They had the in-house at ABC, and I forget what that guy's name was, and he had some sort of conflict with Feige, and that's one of the reasons why Inhumans didn't get made into a film. Another reason why Inhumans just blew chunks right out of the gate when it took to the TV show. This is the guy that did the S.H.I.E.L.D. shows, and you can see there's a big mismatch between the films and the TV. And then you have Marvel TV, which is outside of Disney, because Disney owns ABC, and that's where you get the Netflix shows. And I'm pretty certain Jeff Loeb was ahead of that area, at least as far as creatively. Now Disney's bringing everything in-house. There's no more Netflix. It's all going to the Disney streaming. And, Marvel's just been shitting the bed for the past 5 years. And this all makes sense to have one singular head of Marvel. Now, some people are just like, oh no, Feige's, replacing Joe Quesada, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I don't actually see it that way. What I see is that everyone who's in their place already is staying where they are, but Feige is sort of being promoted as, emperor among kings. And those people will now have to answer to him. Where previously Feige would have to, request that Marvel TV do this or that, or Marvel Comics, why are you doing this or that? They didn't have to answer to him. Everyone now has to answer to him in the terms of the creative control. And that's sort of a good thing, to have a singular vision for your entire product line. I was against this at first when I first heard about this because I wasn't happy with the latter half of the MCU. It still was good, still a monumental achievement, and big round of applause for Kevin Feige for doing what he did. No one's ever done it this well before. I still have, criticisms though. I'm just still things I didn't like. That being said, it's very important that Marvel have all their ducks in a row and you not have one group over here, one group over there, another group over and around the corner, all with different ideas of how they should do things. Look what's happening at DC Comics right now. Just in one comic book publishing company, it's tearing it apart. You got the Jeff Johns side versus the Dan Didio side, and it's destroying things. So my take in here isn't to report the news and tell you who's doing what. You can go to Bleeding Cool here and get this article if you want to see what they have to say. I saved you some monumental headaches from all the millions of pop-ups. I just took a screenshot of their page. This is about all the article. There's really nothing below this. They don't really report much anyway. But that's my take. I think this is a good thing. I think Feige has a good head on his shoulder, and I think he's going to unite Marvel. And the one thing that I took away from Perch's video, and I really urge you to watch it, is that the relation between Brian Michael Bendis and Feige and the MCU. And basically, it wasn't a good one. And Feige, Bendis was part of a contingent that had influence from the comic books on the movies, and that wasn't a good one, and they finally squashed it and got rid of it. And when they squashed it and got rid of it, immediately you saw after effects of what they started doing over in the comics and basically changing the characters, doing all things. And when you look at it from this perspective, and this is all speculation, this is all opinion on my part, but it feels like knowing what happened during this time, and I wasn't aware, that a lot of what might have been going on at Marvel over the past 3 to 4 years might have been really spiteful by a group of immature creators who were pissed off that they got kicked out of the big boys club over at the movie division, having their little influence, and decided to act out and start doing some serious bullshit to the characters. Fast forward a couple years later, DC pulls Bendis away from Marvel. Bendis starts pulling all his little cronies to go over with him. And look what's happening. Marvel's starting to repair itself. It still has a lot of problems, right? But it's making progress. It's doing solid books again. These are baby steps, and the trajectory is upwards. It may take several years to get fixed, or at least be, somewhat fixed, but it's a good sign. Meanwhile, DC's on a downward trajectory. And Feige doesn't fail. He's not in this business. He doesn't do what he does to fail. So I think this is a good thing. You tell me what you think below. Also, I just found out this going on. This is kind of interesting, but small news. Image Comics to launch new creator-led imprints, like several DC black labels. Man, Rich Johnson is just a terrible journalist. Image Comics has never had an imprint before. It has had studios and lines within studios, such as Wildstorm, Top Cow, Shadowline, Cliffhanger, Skybound, and more, but this seems very different indeed. As Eric Stevenson is heading to his 12th year as Image Comics publisher and his second year as a member of the board of directors at Image Comics, he's already looking to head plans for the company's 30th anniversary in 2022. Informed sources tell Bleeding Cool that he is quietly working with a A-list group of creators to launch the first of a number of official Image Comic imprints, lines of new content that will be curated by these creators themselves with Stevenson's indirect involvement. Current brands, Skybound, Top Cow, and Shadowline, are often referred to as imprints, but they all are owned by and operated by studios independently from the Image central office. With these new imprints, we'd see Stevenson working alongside these top writer artists to explore a variety of new formats and expand Image's comics influence to new markets. This seems very confusing to me. Image itself works like a creator-owned imprint. It's a creator-owned publisher. More specifically, it's a publisher that caters to creator-owned individuals. Most of the comics it produces are all people that go, I just have this idea, I want to publish it, it's my own idea. And everyone owns their stuff. Making an imprint to do that, it seems redundant, but that's what they're doing. So it's really weird. Meanwhile, DC cancels their creator-owned imprint in Vertigo, and because Image killed Vertigo by doing what it did better, and then Image is going to launch. I don't get it. That's all there is in the news that I got to report. You tell me what you think. Tell me if there's a big news story that's going on that I missed. I wanted to talk about one other thing, though, before I shift off into the comics. And I wanted to talk about this last week, but I had some technical issues, and I had to cut the bit. I wanted to talk briefly, and I might expand on this later or talk about it in a stream as a subject matter, but I wanted to talk about outrage in comics, and more importantly, people being divested or invested, in their books, and why people get outraged and why other people don't. And you see people be like, just chill out, dude, it's just comics or whatever. And I wanted to give you something to chew on, because I've been thinking about this for a while, and I have various people in my circle of influence or friends or whatever you want to call that. And some are just diehard, super strong, opinionated about the comics, and when they're bad, they're just like, screw what Marvel or DC are doing, and they're really upset. And then I have the other group that's just like, whatever, who cares? And I noticed a trend that seems to really, really make sense. The guys that seem to really be like, whatever, who cares, tend to be the ones that don't buy comics. The ones that really do care and get upset are the ones that do buy comics. And, rewind 2 years ago when I got into the whole Comicsgate thing and the culture war and stuff, and I was seeing all the SJWs, waging war and just blowing up my Twitter and calling me a Nazi and a bigot because I was upset that, that Captain America was turned into a Nazi. That's ironic that I'm the Nazi because I'm upset that Captain America is a Nazi. So weird. Or I'm upset that Thor was turned into a woman. Or all those various changes that Marvel was doing purely for ideological propaganda purposes and not at all for good storytelling. Tons of people. And, I used to joke at them and be like, oh yeah, the people who want all these changes at Marvel are the people who don't buy comics. And fast forward to today, and I'm more convinced of it than ever. The people who aren't upset are people that don't buy. And, doing this channel, I borrow a lot of comics to read so I can review. I'm not going to buy all these shit books to do that. I definitely do buy my books. I show my receipts every week. And I don't even know if oops, I'm just thinking, do I have my receipt for this week? Oops. So, be that as it may, I get upset because I'm buying these books. I'm upset when, I canceled Green Lantern an issue or two ago because I heard they were canceling it at 12 and this bullshit that they're rebooting and having multiple seasons and all this stuff. And I'm like, screw that. And I'm upset because I invested in 8 issues or 9 issues at $4 a pop. If I'd have known this back at the beginning, I wouldn't have bought those damn issues. That's the deal. Like, this is what the people who, when I'm outraged and I'm pissed off and people just be like, dude, chill out, whatever. You don't understand. I want my money back. I don't get my money back. So when I'm lied to, when Marvel Comics launched their Uncanny X-Men line, what was it, a year ago? It was just not even a year ago. It's not even a year ago Uncanny X-Men launched. They told fans, we hear you. We're bringing back Uncanny X-Men. We know that's what you want. We're canceling this bullshit X, red, blue, pink, purple, all those other lines. We're bringing back the core X-Men that you love. And fans were like, woohoo! And I, being a jaded comic fan that I am, was, as much as I love X-Men, I was like, no, don't do this. Don't jump into it. And then they did it weekly, which I should have known right there was a red flag. That they were like, oh, it's a weekly comic. And sure enough, 6 months into that release, they announced, oh, we're canceling Uncanny X-Men and we're rebooting it, and Jonathan Hickman's doing his whole thing, and And then on top of that, it got revealed that they knew about this 6 months before they even launched Uncanny X-Men. So they knew. Now, fortunately, I didn't buy the Uncanny X-Men book. So I, had the faux outrage or whatever based on principle of what was happening. But I'll tell you what, if I had been buying those X-Men books, I would be so pissed. You get taken advantage of. It's not pleasant, and it's not something that you should take lightly and you should keep silent on. And I didn't buy those X-Men books, so, I said my piece, and I think, like I said, the principle of it I disagree with, and I'm mad for all the people who did get taken advantage of. But I did buy Green Lantern, and I did buy the New Age of Heroes, over at DC. And I know what it's like to get your, the books that you invested in and then get, canceled, get taken advantage of, or, see what's going on with Superman. I got to be part of that. I fell in love with Superman because of Tomasi and Dan Jurgens. And then Bendis comes over and just starts pissing all over everything like an alpha male dog, just marking his territory, just destroying Superman. It's horrendous. Now, some people say, whatever, dude, but you're not buying Superman. I was buying Superman. I was buying back issues of Superman. And I even bought the Bendis Supermans. I bought Man of Steel 1 through 6. And I was a big proponent. I was out there trying to tell people, have a positive attitude. Bendis isn't as bad as you think. Da-da-da-da-da. No, Ash, he's going to screw it up. Don't. I was like, no, just give it a chance. I did. I gave it 6 issues. Then I gave Action Comics 12 issues and Superman 12 issues. That's 30 issues. 30 issues at $4 a piece. I gave $120 to DC for their bullshit Superman. I'm upset. Now, people on the sidelines that don't buy comics, but they just like the idea of Bendis. They just like the idea of socially progressive comics. And it's cool that comics are falling in line with their ideology. That's great, right? Or there's the people that maybe are closer to my, outlook, an ideological sense. But they still don't buy the comics. They just pirate them, and read them. And they go, yeah, these are dumb, but they're not outraged because they didn't blow $120. They just laugh at it and go, oh, Superman sucks, whatever, no big deal. But it is a big deal to fans who spend money. And I just wanted to take this time to rant about it. I'm probably going to talk about this in the future because I think this is an important outlook and important for you, or for anyone, I should say, when you're thinking about people who are mad and being vocally negative about the comic book industry. Before you stop to criticize them or tell them to shut up or whatever, consider why they're upset. If there's someone spending their hard-earned money trying to keep this dying industry afloat, maybe they have a good reason to vent and rant. Anyways, that's all I have to say about that. Thanks for listening. Let's get on to the comics. All right, thanks for making it back to the end of the video where the meat and potatoes of the show is about. It's a comic haul. It's Ash Wednesdays. It's New Comic Book Day. And let's get on with the books that I got this week. Starting off with Independence, we've got Firefly number 10. This is the pre-order variant cover. I've just been collecting those because. So there you go. I'm a big fan of Firefly. So I just get these personally for me. It's not something I necessarily recommend for everyone, but if you're a Firefly guy, you understand. So next, going into DC, the big bad boy. It's finally out. Wow, talk about mixed reviews. I'm an unabashed Frank Miller fanboy. Sorry, I hit my mic. I don't know if that made any noise. I'm an unashamed, unabashed Frank Miller fanboy. I love Frank Miller. He's he is my favorite creator in all of comic books. I know he's getting old. He's got health issues. He's probably destroyed some of his brain from alcohol and things in the past. I'm getting old myself. I know what that's like and what it feels to just not be at your sharpest. But suffice it to say, there is still some magic in his fingers and at the tip of his pen. I love his writing. This isn't the greatest stuff he's ever done, but there's artistry in his writing. I wish I knew how to put it. This book is, people like it or they hate it. So if you want something more traditional and more fitting what your understanding of Superman is, you should probably stay clear of this. But if you have read some more of the modern Frank Miller stuff and you enjoyed it, then maybe you can enjoy this too. So next, something I guarantee you that Superman is better than, City of Bane. I keep buying this because I'm seeing the run out. Tynan's taking over at 86. I got 4 more issues to get. So this is what I'm talking about. I keep spending money. Yeah, that's my rant that earlier. Next, Justice League 34. Scott Snyder. I don't know why people bitch about Scott Snyder. I'll never understand this. He's one of the best ongoing writers in comics, maybe ever. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm going back, and I'm spoiled because, I constantly refer to the Chris Claremont X-Men run, which is the best comic book run in the history of comics. You'll never nail a 17-year run the way he did. And I've seen it at its best. And Scott Snyder isn't Chris Claremont, but he can play on the same team, if that makes sense. He's a good writer. And there's a difference between an ongoing writer and just, a writer. Some writers, like Frank Miller, can do things like The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One and Daredevil Born Again and in the Sin City books and 300 and all the great things that he's done in the past. But he does them once in a while. He builds up a great story in his head, takes his time, then boom, I got an idea, puts it on paper and does it. Jonathan Hickman, what he's doing with X-Men right now, it's fantastic, but it took him 2 years to develop and put the story all together and put it on paper. He's not writing month after month after month after month. That is a different skill set. And they're both valuable, right? They are both valuable. We need those writers that can churn out a book every month. Your Chuck Dixons of the world. Your Robert Venditti can do that every month. He just churns out a good, solid book. Is every single book Dark Knight Returns? No. But Frank Miller, even in his prime, when he was at his absolute best, could not turn out a monthly book. Some writers can't do it. There's my phone. The Chawa sound effect. Last, Guardians of the Galaxy. That's not last. This is the beginning of Marvel. Number 10. But it is going back to what my rant was about with Marvel. Marvel's canceling Guardians of the Galaxy. Can you believe this? I just get into Guardians of the Galaxy and they're announcing it's canceling it. Why are they canceling it? Because Donny Cates is going over to Thor. So, true to form, Marvel can't just keep the numbering. They've got to reboot it. So Al Ewing is taking over. They're starting it over at number 1. And I'm like, you know what? I might have been convinced to keep buying Guardians of the Galaxy if Al Ewing just took over on the next numbering. Because, it's the next number? I'm gonna buy that book and see how it goes. I'm not an Al Ewing fan, but I would give it a chance. But this is a jumping off point for me. I'm like, this is the last issue of this run? Done. Al Ewing starting another one? I'm not even getting on board. I'm going to put my money on Thor instead. So it's a stupid move, Marvel. Stupid move. But you want those that short-term profit mentality of the number ones. Look at this cover for Absolute Carnage. Can you believe it? It's gorgeous. It's like ugly and gorgeous at the same time. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's like a shower of blood, looks like. But man, Stegman's art is on point. And this is a fantastic series. If you're just reading the core book, it's just fun. And the art is great. This is what comics have been about. And I'm not even a symbiote fan. It's strange. I did not think I was going to get this book, but I am. Sorry about my phone again. And then finally, X-Men number 1. We have a new X-Men book on the shelves. Unbelievable. Just that not only that there's a new X-Men book on the shelf, I guess that shouldn't be unbelievable because they've rebooted it 3 times in the past 2 years, but that there's an X-Men book that I'm buying. I haven't bought an X-Men book in 20 years. over 20 years, because I don't buy shitty X-Men. I got out in the late 90s. I've dipped my head back in time to time. I got Marvel Unlimited, read some stuff, and there was some okay-ish stories, but it's never been good. And I'm a huge stickler. I guess I'm spoiled. I'm a Chris Claremont junkie. When I joined comics, or when I started collecting comics, it was Chris Claremont and Rick Leonardi, and then Silvestri took over shortly thereafter, and then Jim Lee. It was just a great time to be an X-Men fan. And it's hard for comics to live up to that. That was my expectations. So, oops. Oh, God, they put the camera lens in the stupidest place on the iPad. Anyways, there's my receipt. Remember, kids, always show your receipt. $31 I spent today, much less than you spend on gas these days. I don't know what's going on with the gas prices. So, Stan, Forky, what are your thoughts? Is this a good pull? You approve? Yeah, I thought so too. This is a good week. Even though it's kind of small, this is actually kind of what I want to be pulling. Stan, what do you think? Oh, you're going straight to your boys on the X-Men. Forky, oh, another week, another shitty Batman book. Seems like this Batman book is just coming out every week. It's all the time I'm getting Batman. You're going to notice something, though. This wasn't in the top 10. All right. So, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. And I will see you next time.